Welcome to Stairway to English. Today, you'll discover how to learn English naturally just by understanding real messages. Listen carefully, read along, and let your brain start thinking in English. If you enjoy this lesson, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. Tell us what part helped you most. Episode 1. Why traditional methods don't work anymore. Learning a new language is one of the most exciting things you can do in your life. It opens doors to new cultures, new people, and new opportunities. But for many learners, it also becomes a long, frustrating journey full of grammar books, vocabulary lists, and endless translation exercises. You study for months, sometimes years, and yet, when you try to speak, your mind freezes. You know the words, but they don't come out naturally. You understand grammar, but you can't follow a fast conversation. Why does this happen? Why do so many people study English or any other language for years and still feel stuck at the same level? The problem is not you. The problem is the method. Traditional methods focus too much on studying the language and not enough on using it. They tell you to memorize grammar rules, learn 20 new words every day, and repeat after a teacher who may sound robotic or unnatural. You spend hours doing exercises, filling in blanks, and translating sentences that you will never use in real life. This way of learning might help you pass a test, but it doesn't make you fluent. Fluency is not about knowing rules. It's about understanding and communicating. Think about how children learn their first language. They don't start with grammar books. They don't memorize vocabulary lists. They listen. They watch. They experience. They hear thousands of hours of language in real life. Simple, clear, meaningful language. Little by little, their brains start to recognize patterns, sounds, and meanings. They begin to speak naturally without thinking about grammar. This is the magic of comprehensible input. Comprehensible input means listening to or reading something that you can mostly understand, even if you don't know every word. It's the idea that the best way to acquire a language is by receiving language that is just a bit above your current level. Something you can understand through context, pictures, tone, and repetition. When you understand the message, your brain automatically learns the structure and the vocabulary. You don't have to force it. Imagine you are watching a short story in English. The speaker talks slowly, uses simple words, and maybe shows pictures. You can follow the story easily. You feel relaxed. You are not translating every sentence. You are simply listening and enjoying. That is comprehensible input. You are learning English without pain, without stress, and without memorizing. It feels almost effortless, but it's incredibly powerful. The more you understand, the more you acquire naturally. Science supports this idea. The famous linguist Stephen Krashen developed the input hypothesis, which says that humans acquire language when they understand messages that are slightly beyond their current level. This process is natural, the same way we learned our first language as children. When the input is understandable, the brain starts to build its own internal grammar without conscious study. This approach is completely different from traditional classroom learning. In most schools, the focus is on output. You are asked to speak, write, and produce language before your brain is ready. But if you don't have enough understandable input, your output will always be limited. You might be able to form simple sentences, but you will never feel confident or natural. It's like trying to play music before ever hearing a song. Comprehensible input changes that. Instead of forcing yourself to speak too soon, you focus first on understanding. You listen to easy English stories, watch videos with clear language, and read short texts that match your level. As you continue, your brain starts to absorb the rhythm, the grammar, and the meaning automatically. Later, speaking comes naturally. You don't need to think about verb tenses or sentence structure. They simply appear when you talk. This is why so many learners who switch to the comprehensible input method finally start to see progress. They stop worrying about mistakes. They stop feeling frustrated. They start enjoying English. They start living it. If you've been struggling to improve your English, it's time to change your approach. Stop focusing on what you can't do. Instead, give your brain what it needs: understandable and interesting input. Read and listen to things you enjoy. Follow content that is made for learners at your level. And remember, language learning is not about perfection. It's about connection and understanding. In the next episode, we will explore how to find the right kind of input for your level and how to use it daily to improve faster than ever before. You will see that you don't need to study harder, you just need to learn smarter. Episode 2: Finding the Right Input for Your Level. In the last episode, we talked about why traditional methods often fail and how comprehensible input can change the way you learn English. You now know that your brain learns best when it receives language it can understand. Not too easy, not too hard, but just a little above your current level. But this leads to an important question. How can you find the right kind of input for your level? Finding the right input is like finding the right fuel for your brain. If the content is too difficult, you will get tired and frustrated. If it's too easy, you will get bored and stop learning. You need a perfect balance, something you can understand around 80 to 90% of, but that still has a few new words or expressions that make your brain work just a little harder. That's the sweet spot for language growth. Let's start with listening. Listening is one of the best ways to get comprehensible input because it trains your ear and helps you connect sounds to meaning. But not all listening materials are equal. Movies, news, or native podcasts are usually too fast and complex for most learners at the beginning. If you try to listen to something far above your level, you might understand only a few words and your brain won't learn much. You'll just feel lost. Instead, choose listening materials that are made for learners: short stories, graded audiobooks, or YouTube videos that use slow, clear English. These are designed to help you understand and follow the meaning easily. When you listen and understand, your brain begins to collect useful patterns naturally. You don't need to repeat after the speaker or translate in your head. Just understand the message. The key is to focus on meaning, not on words. For example, imagine you were listening to a simple story about a boy who loses his dog. The speaker says, "The boy is looking for his dog. He goes to the park. He calls, 'Max, Max!' But the dog does not come." Even if you don't know every word, you can follow what's happening. The story is clear, emotional, and easy to imagine. You understand the message, and that is enough for your brain to start learning. Later, when you hear "look for," you will already know what it means because your brain has heard it in a real context before. Now, let's talk about reading. Reading is another powerful form of input because it gives you time to think and process language at your own speed. You can stop, reread, and notice new words. But again, choosing the right level is important. If every sentence feels like a puzzle, you won't learn efficiently. Your goal is to understand the overall meaning of the text, not to translate every word. Start with graded readers, short books written for different levels of English learners. These books often use simple grammar and high-frequency vocabulary. For example, Level 2 books are perfect for learners who already know basic English but want to expand their vocabulary naturally. As you read more, your brain starts to recognize patterns automatically. You don't just learn words, you learn how words connect in real sentences. You can also use online articles or stories that match your interests. If you like travel, read short travel stories. If you like science, read simple articles about space or animals. When you enjoy what you read, your brain stays more active and focused. Enjoyment is a key part of successful learning because it helps your brain stay open to new input. The more you enjoy, the more you remember. Listening and reading can work together perfectly. For example, you can listen to a story while reading the text at the same time. This is called listening reading practice, and it helps you connect spoken and written English naturally. You hear the pronunciation, rhythm, and tone while also seeing the spelling and structure. Over time, your understanding becomes deeper and faster. You stop translating because your brain starts to think directly in English. Another important part of finding the right input is repetition. Repeating the same content several times may sound boring, but it's one of the most powerful ways to build fluency. Each time you listen or read again, you understand more. The first time, you understand the main idea. The second time, you notice new details. The third time, you start hearing grammar and pronunciation patterns without even trying. Repetition turns new language into automatic knowledge. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. You don't have to. Understanding the general meaning is enough. Your brain will slowly fill in the missing parts as you get more input over time. Be patient and trust the process. Remember, language learning is not a sprint. It's a journey. Every hour of listening and reading adds up. Here's a simple daily routine you can try. Listen to an English story for 15 to 20 minutes every day. Read a short text or book at your level for another 15 to 20 minutes. Repeat the same material a few times during the week. Focus on understanding, not on memorizing or translating. If you keep doing this for a few weeks, you will notice something amazing. English will start to feel easier. You will begin to understand new content without much effort. You will start thinking in English and hearing phrases in your mind automatically. That's the power of comprehensible input in action. In the next episode, we will talk about how to stay motivated and consistent while using this method. You will learn how to build daily habits that make learning English feel natural, enjoyable, and unstoppable. Episode 3: Building Powerful Habits for Language Learning. In the first 2 episodes, we talked about why traditional learning methods don't work and how comprehensible input helps your brain acquire a new language naturally. You also learned how to find the right kind of input for your level. Not too hard, not too easy. But even when you know what to do, many learners still fail to make real progress. Why? Because they can't stay consistent. They lose motivation after a few weeks, or they study irregularly. That's why, in this episode, we'll talk about how to build powerful habits that will keep your language learning journey alive every single day. Let's start with a simple truth. Small, daily actions are more powerful than big, random efforts. Many people try to study for hours in one day, then do nothing for a week. This doesn't work because your brain learns through repetition and exposure. Imagine planting a seed. If you water it once a week with a big bucket, it will die. But if you water it a little every day, it will grow strong and healthy. Language learning works exactly the same way. You don't need to study for 3 hours every day. You just need to give your brain daily input. 20, 30, or even 10 minutes can make a big difference when you do it consistently. To build a strong habit, the first rule is to make it easy. Don't wait for perfect motivation. Don't plan a complex study schedule that feels heavy. Instead, choose something simple and enjoyable. For example, you can listen to an English story while eating breakfast, or read a short English article before bed. The key is to connect your English time with a moment that already exists in your daily routine. This way, it becomes automatic, not something you have to fight to remember. The second rule is to focus on enjoyment, not perfection. When learning feels like a job, your brain resists it. But when it feels fun and interesting, you want to come back for more. This is why comprehensible input is so powerful. It turns learning into something enjoyable. You can watch videos about topics you love, listen to stories that make you smile, or read texts that make you curious. You don't have to understand every single word. As long as you get the main idea, you are learning. Remember, even native speakers don't know every word they hear. You should also track your progress, but not with tests or grades. Instead, track your consistency. For example, you can keep a small calendar or notebook and mark each day you spend time listening or reading in English. Seeing those marks grow will make you feel proud and motivated. It's not about being perfect, it's about showing up every day. One missed day doesn't mean failure. What matters is to continue the next day again. Another great habit is repeating content you love. Repetition is not boring when you truly like what you're learning. When you watch or listen to something for the second or third time, your brain notices new details. The first time, you understand the general story. The second time, you catch new phrases. The third time, you start to hear rhythm and pronunciation patterns. This repetition helps move the language from short-term memory to long-term memory. In other words, it becomes part of you. You can also use the input sandwich method. Here's how it works. First, listen or read in English without any help. Just try to understand as much as you can. Then, look at the translation or use subtitles to understand the parts you missed. Finally, listen or read again. This time, everything will make more sense. This three-step method helps your brain connect meaning with sound and text more deeply. It's an excellent way to build understanding and confidence at the same time. The third rule of habit building is to create a positive environment. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Change your phone's language to English. Listen to English music. Follow English-speaking YouTube channels that use slow, clear speech. When English becomes part of your daily environment, it stops feeling foreign. You stop studying English, you start living it. Your brain begins to recognize patterns automatically because it's surrounded by them. Of course, some days you will feel tired or busy. That's normal. On those days, don't force yourself to study hard. Just do something small. Listen to a short clip, read one paragraph, or repeat something you already know. The goal is to keep the chain unbroken. Doing even a little bit keeps your brain connected to English and prevents you from losing momentum. Here's another powerful idea. Celebrate small wins. Maybe today you understood a video without subtitles. Maybe you caught a new phrase in a song. Maybe you finished reading a short story. Each of these moments is progress. Celebrate them. Tell yourself, I'm getting better. This positive emotion strengthens your motivation and makes your habits stick. If you want to make your habits even stronger, connect them with your goals. Ask yourself, why am I learning English? Maybe you want a better job, to travel, or to talk with people around the world. Remind yourself of that purpose every time you listen or read. When your learning has meaning, your motivation becomes unstoppable. So, to summarize this episode, do something every day, even for a short time. Make learning enjoyable and easy. Repeat content and notice your progress. Keep English in your environment. Celebrate your small wins. With these habits, you will no longer need to push yourself. English will become a natural part of your daily life, and your progress will feel automatic. You'll find that what once seemed hard now feels easy. In the next episode, we'll go even deeper and explore how to think in English using comprehensible input. You will learn how to stop translating in your head and start understanding and speaking directly in English the way fluent speakers do. Episode 4. How to Start Thinking in English Naturally. One of the biggest dreams for every English learner is to think directly in English. Many people can read, write, and even speak a little, but when they try to talk, their mind goes back to their first language. They translate every sentence before saying it. This makes speaking slow and stressful. You start to think, how do I say this? Or what's the right word? By the time you finish translating, the conversation has already moved on. In this episode, you'll learn how comprehensible input helps you stop translating and start thinking in English naturally, the same way native speakers do. First, it's important to understand why your brain translates. Your native language has been in your mind for many years. Every word, sound, and grammar rule feels automatic. When you start learning a new language, your brain tries to connect everything to what it already knows. That's why you translate. But here's the good news. Your brain can create a new English zone if you give it enough understandable and meaningful input. This new zone slowly replaces the need for translation. You just need to feed your brain with the right kind of English, clear, simple, and easy to understand. So, how does this happen? It happens through massive exposure. Every time you listen or read something you understand, your brain starts to connect English words directly to ideas, not to your native language. For example, when you read, "The sun is shining," your brain sees the image of the sun and feels the meaning instantly. You don't think, "Güneş parlıyor." You simply understand. That's thinking in English. The more input you get, the stronger these direct connections become. One of the best ways to train your brain to think in English is through listening reading activities. This means listening to an English story while reading the same text at the same time. You hear the rhythm, pronunciation, and tone of English while also seeing the words on the page. Your brain links sound and meaning together without needing translation. After doing this many times, you'll start to hear English sentences in your mind when you think, not translations, but English thoughts. You can also train your brain by using short, simple English all day long in your mind. For example, when you wake up, say to yourself, I'm getting out of bed. I'm making coffee. I'm going to work. These small sentences are easy, but they teach your brain to describe your world in English. You can also ask yourself simple questions. What am I doing now? Or what do I need today? Don't worry about mistakes. The goal is not to be perfect, it's to make English your thinking language. Here's a simple exercise that helps. Choose a short video with clear, slow English. Watch it once with subtitles and understand the meaning. Then watch again without subtitles. Try to focus on the speaker's voice, expressions, and body language. As you watch, imagine the story in your mind. You'll start to feel the meaning instead of thinking in your first language. Over time, your brain gets used to connecting English directly to images and emotions. That's when true fluency begins. Another effective method is shadowing. This means listening to a sentence and repeating it immediately, like an echo. You don't have to repeat perfectly. The goal is to follow the rhythm and sound of English. When you shadow often, your brain starts to feel the natural flow of the language. It's like training your mouth and mind at the same time. Slowly, English phrases begin to appear automatically when you speak or think. It's also helpful to limit translation while learning. In the beginning, translation can be useful for understanding meaning, but if you do it all the time, your brain becomes dependent on your native language. Instead of translating new words, try to understand them from the context. For example, if you read, "She is smiling because she is happy," you don't need to translate smiling. The picture in your mind explains it. Your brain learns faster through context than through dictionaries. Another key to thinking in English is emotional connection. We remember best what we feel. If you listen to a funny story, a sad story, or something that makes you curious, your brain creates strong emotional memories. These memories connect directly to English words and phrases. That's why stories, movies, and podcasts are so powerful. They make you feel the language. Don't worry if it takes time. Thinking in a new language doesn't happen in 1 month or even 6 months. It's a slow process, but it works. One day, you'll realize you're reading or listening without translating at all. You'll understand instantly. And when you speak, the words will just flow. That's the moment you know your brain has started to think in English. Here are a few simple tips to help you get there. Listen and read English every day, even for 15 minutes. Focus on stories and topics you enjoy. Try to describe your daily life in English, even in your mind. Use repetition. Watch or read the same thing several times. Avoid overusing dictionaries. Guess meaning from context. Be patient and trust your brain. It learns naturally through understanding. Thinking in English is not about intelligence. It's about exposure, consistency, and connection. The more you understand, the faster your brain builds direct pathways in English. And when that happens, your learning becomes smoother, faster, and more enjoyable than ever before. In the next and final episode, we'll explore how to make English a natural part of your real life, not just something you study, but something you live every day. You'll see how to create an English-rich environment that makes fluency inevitable. Episode 5. Living in English. Make the language part of your life. You've learned what comprehensible input is, how to find the right materials, how to build strong habits, and how to start thinking in English. Now it's time for the most exciting and important step, living in English. In this final episode, you will discover how to make English a natural part of your daily life, not just something you study. Because the truth is, fluency doesn't come from studying harder. It comes from living the language. Let's start with a powerful idea. English should not stay in your study room. It should travel with you everywhere, in your phone, your ears, your mind, and even in your emotions. If you keep English only in a study box, your progress will always be slow. But if you make it part of your real world, your improvement will never stop. The goal is to create an English environment around you, even if you live in a country where nobody speaks English. And yes, that's absolutely possible. First, make English your digital environment. Your phone, computer, and social media can become your teachers. Change your phone's language to English. Follow YouTube channels, podcasts, and Instagram pages that use clear, slow English. Subscribe to channels that talk about things you already love: cooking, travel, science, movies, or motivation. When you learn through topics that truly interest you, your brain absorbs English naturally. Every time you scroll, you'll be reading and listening in English without even realizing it. This is the kind of input that transforms your language skills without extra effort. Second, build an English routine around your daily life. For example, in the morning, listen to a short English podcast while brushing your teeth or making breakfast. During lunch, watch a 10-minute English video with subtitles. In the evening, read a simple English story before bed. These short, daily habits keep your brain in touch with English all day long. They are easy, enjoyable, and powerful. Remember, language learning is not about one big lesson. It's about many small, consistent moments that feed your brain with meaning and connection. Another great way to live in English is to think and talk to yourself in the language. This might sound strange at first, but it's one of the most effective ways to develop fluency. You can describe what you're doing. I'm cooking dinner. I'm walking to the store. It's raining outside. You can also ask yourself simple questions like, what should I eat today? Or, how was my day? These small moments train your brain to think directly in English without translation. Over time, it becomes natural. You can also create English moments of fun. Watch movies or TV shows you enjoy, but with English subtitles. At first, choose shows that use simple language. Cartoons or documentaries are great for this. As you understand more, move on to more advanced shows. When you hear a funny or emotional phrase, repeat it aloud. Try to feel the rhythm and emotion behind it. This helps you sound more natural when you speak. If possible, find ways to communicate in English, even if it's just a little. You can join online communities for English learners, write short comments in English under YouTube videos, or chat with AI tools like me in English to practice. You don't need to speak perfectly. The goal is to use what you know and build confidence. Every time you use English, even for a short message, you strengthen your fluency. Here's something many learners don't realize. Your emotions are the strongest tool for learning. When you feel something, joy, curiosity, sadness, laughter, your brain remembers more. So don't just study words. Feel the stories you listen to. Enjoy the conversations you read. Smile when you understand a new phrase. Each emotional connection builds stronger memory in your mind. That's why comprehensible input works so well. It connects language to real human emotion. Another simple but powerful tip is to review old content. When you return to a story, video, or podcast you listened to weeks ago, you'll be surprised at how much more you understand now. This is proof that your brain is growing quietly in the background. You might not notice it every day, but every hour of listening and reading adds up. Progress in language learning is like watching the sun rise. Slow, beautiful, and unstoppable. As you live in English more and more, something amazing will happen. You will stop studying English and start feeling it. You'll begin to understand jokes, songs, and idioms. You'll start thinking and even dreaming in English. Your confidence will grow naturally. When someone speaks to you, you'll understand almost instantly. You'll find that English is no longer a subject you learn. It's a part of who you are. Comprehensible input is not just a method. It's a mindset. It's a way to enjoy the process instead of fighting with it. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to memorize endless rules. You just need to understand messages, feel stories, and stay consistent. Day by day, your English will grow stronger, not through pressure, but through pleasure. So from today, don't say, I'm studying English. Say, I'm living in English. Because when you live in the language, fluency becomes your natural destiny.